interesting presentations. I'll now ask the three presenters to come up. We have, I think, 10 minutes, a little bit less than that, for left on the program, and I've asked the three to comment on each other's presentation, so I won't take any questions from the audience. I hope you're not too disappointed. You can talk to them, of course, afterwards. You know, I've been interested in myself in developing economies and early democracies, and there you tend to be these elites, you know, that are really afraid of the masses and the working class, and they refuse to give up power to the working class. And, you know, the history, political history of Norway, you also have the same thing. You know, the working class is coming and the elites are really afraid of the working class. And given from the two first presentations, what you're telling us is this is what we are doing today, isn't it? The elites, are we the elites who are refusing to give up power to the working class? And should we do something different? Are we struggling to keep our interest and our power? Or is it a problem? And if so, what is the problem in this? Is one of the questions that I am sitting on. If you can reflect on this, or whatever else you want to add to the debate.
I can give it a shot, certainly. I think as far as the British left and the British Labour Party goes, the main problem is in keeping its own electoral coalition together. Because that coalition straddles old traditional working class on the one hand, often socially conservative, uncomfortable with technological change and so on, and the young outward-looking urban elite on the other hand. And how can you satisfy both those groups concurrently? That's a tremendous challenge. And I think the entire Brexit debate has placed the party in the worst of all places, because it cannot argue in favour of neither the one side nor the other. The Labour Party leadership didn't want the referendum in the first place, couldn't take a clear position on it, saying only that EU membership is on the balance a good thing, but we're not really interested in the debate. And then what you find afterwards is that a large part of the party's assumed heartland has voted to leave the European Union. Another part of its heartland, the young, urban, outward-looking and so on, have opted strongly to remain in the European Union. How do you deal with that afterwards? What the Labour Party has done is to just sideline itself more or less in the debate, so that the Conservatives and the government, they speak for the majority of British citizens, assumedly, and the Liberal Democrats have taken on the role as the voice of the 48%. And I think it's characteristic of European social democratic parties. Look at the Netherlands, as you rightly exemplified, and at the French elections as well. The dominant voice countering right-wing populism is that of the centre ground. Macron in the French case, and in the Netherlands, a debate between the sort of centre and the right-wing populists. No one remembers the Social Democrats anymore, and that is a problem. And it's characteristic of the social change that the left is unable to deal with, I think.
Well, I guess a big challenge for social democratic parties is how do you bring back working class voters within the fold of the kind of broad social project that they had in the past. And I think there are two strategies that you can adopt. Either, and I think that's a view that is quite prominent in the left, and I don't know whether it is true, is that you can bring them back in the fold by moving left economically. That's the people in the US who said that Bernie Sanders would have been the solution to Trump, because more left-wing policies economically would have brought all these voters back into the fold of the Democratic Party. I am not sure this actually works. And I'm not sure that working class voters can be convinced by more left-wing policies economically without doing something with the concerns about cultural change and immigration. I think the big problem was for working class voters in many countries that they tended to be essentially at the center of politics. They used to have a position relatively privileged, which is not there anymore. And if you look at Britain, actually that's the slide that you showed in the beginning, white working class children do actually much worse at school than ethnic minorities. So that's quite a big change. And I think all these changes is relative rather than their absolute position, which is not probably worse than ethnic minorities, but that's the relative change in relation to their position in the past. The other strategy is for left parties to move right when it comes to immigration and cultural issues. That's a little bit what the PvdA in the Netherlands has done by being very critical of free movement of workers, with the pressure of Eastern European workers on Dutch wages. If you do that, you're probably going to lose the support of all socio-cultural professionals, people like us, essentially, who are not going to vote for you anymore because they don't, agree with this kind of positions. So the big question is whether you can still keep these two social groups, this big social coalition with whose preferences are really moved away from each other, whether you can still keep them together in a sort of coherent project along these two dimensions, both economically and when it comes to culture and immigration.
Final word goes to you.
Very briefly. I think one final consideration is that responsibility can still be a winning electoral issue. And I think that's been part of the success of the Norwegian Labour Party, and in comparison to many other Labour parties at least, that it's still a very convincing and credible governing party, a party that takes responsibility. And you also saw that at the Dutch elections, with the big electoral winner being the sitting incumbent prime minister, who basically ran a campaign saying, well, things are going pretty well. We're able to govern this country. Give me 4 more years. So I think, well, perhaps that's an optimistic view, but being a responsible governing party can still be an alternative for Labour parties.
On that happy note, thank you so much for 3 really brilliant presentations, and there is some coffee out there for the audience.